The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Well, go on, Kev. We didn't talk about it last week. We should do this week. You are now a radio star.
I don't know about that. I'm having a go at Tinternet Radio.
Tinternet Radio. Well, you should. For those that don't know, Kev is now on. It's Thursday nights or Thursday afternoons.
Thursday afternoons.
You are now on radio as a fully fledged DJ.
I think DJ is pushing it a bit fine, but yeah, I am. I'm on Incapable Staircase Internet Radio. I am Country Boyo.
Where does the name Incapable? What is it? Staircase.
Incapable Staircase. Yeah. So it was set up by James and Bella. The names are right at the beginning of last year.
Right.
It's like it's a not-for-profit type thing. There's loads of people on there now, and obviously during the lockdown, everybody was off work, so they all kind of did. So it ended up being kind of 24 hours a day, and it's great. There's loads and loads of shows on there.
Yeah.
There's kind of taste for everybody. But yeah, so they got in touch, and I'm on there now doing my country folk
show.
And acoustic, which is my get out of jail card. Acoustic, that could be everything.
How did they get in touch with you then? How did they know that Mullins was a bit of a country boyo, as you're called?
Well, Dave Sturdy, who's now in my old office, he's on there as well. In fact, as we record this, he's doing his show right this second.
No way. We should tune in.
So he finishes at 4. But so he was like, he came in and he saw kind of all of the podcast equipment and the soundboards up on the wall and everything. He was like, you're into your music, because I've been to film him do long players concerts and things like that in Malmesbury, and he's like, you fancy it? They're looking for somewhere else. I was like, well, and then before I know it, demo was done, and
you were in.
I was in. Yeah, that all happened last week, and then yesterday,
I
watched that timer go down from 5 seconds to 0, and it went, "You are on air," and I was like, "Beep."
The FujiCast.
Well, here we are, FujiCast. Another week has come round. Kev's still in Bunker Malmesbury just for a couple more weeks, and then you're joining us over here again, aren't you? Eh?
Yep. I shall be whipping up the M4 to you.
All back to normal. Well, welcome to the show. You and your questions from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you would like to send a mail, though, in the old-fashioned way, send to click@fujicast.co.uk. If you are not a Fujifilm shooter, do not worry. It's a big community, and whatever flavour you shoot, you are very welcome. Thank you to our friends who've now supported us on Patreon. I think we're going to do some Patreon call-outs in a mo, which for the price of a coffee keeps the show growing and most importantly going. I forgot you don't like that expression, do you?
No.
Kev's book of the week this week. Is it affordable, or is it something you have to sell your nearest and dearest to afford?
No, it's a really cool book. Very available on Amazon. Matthew Beck Event. Actually, I heard Joel Meyerowitz talking about it.
Right.
So that's why I went for it.
Well, if it's good enough for Joel Meyerowitz, it's got to be good enough for us.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, after today's show, some of the subjects get picked up in the private Facebook group, which you are also welcome to join. So, and today's guest is New York portrait photographer Donna Svenovic. 3 decades, a New York portrait photographer and a long-tail project maker too. Right, let's look at those that have joined us, Kev, in Patreon.
Indeed. So in no particular order, apart from the order that they subscribed, we have Stephen Anker, we've got Tim Helps, and Tim certainly helps. Boom, boom.
Oh, dear.
We've got our good friend, Rob Ward. You remember Rob, don't you?
Rob. How is he? I haven't spoken to Rob for ages. I bought a big tripod off Rob once.
Yeah, Rob. Yeah, I like Rob. I slept in his bedroom once, in his spare bedroom. Yeah. Nice chap. Spencer Wynn, Christian Glock, Chris O'Sullivan, and David Tanner.
David Tanner. I know David because he very kindly supports the Photography Daily podcast too. So thank you, David. Right, let's do a bump to the front question then, Kev. Do you want one about weddings or do you want one about ND filters?
Let's go for the exciting ND filter question.
Okay. Well, I think we've had something like it before, but I know it wasn't this because Johan Borhead starts off with yada, yada, yada. Like the knights who say nigh, that should be our greeting phrase, he says. He says, I think you missed my question, the Boxgate debacle, he said to me, or maybe you skipped it for some reason. But he said so, but I've sent a bonus one instead that you can tackle. I was thinking about the latest addition to the X100V, the ND filter functionality in video. I would love to have this on my XH1, since I switch between photo and video a lot in my job as a photojournalist. Would this be possible? How hard can it be? I guess it's expensive to manufacture and need some room in the cameras, but on the future XH2, well, I wouldn't mind the extra bulk. Now, we have had a very similar question to this, so we might be going over a little bit of old ground with this. And, of course, the XH2 rumours came out, didn't they, earlier last week? So what do you think, Kev? Can it get done?
Well, clearly it's not something that can be retrofitted in firmware, so it definitely won't be in the XH1. But I don't know. It's a little bit like the question we had last week about leaf shutters and, why are they not in the interchangeable lens cameras? And then somebody did on the Facebook group put a very good explanation of all of the cameras that have actually got leaf shutters built into them. I'm presuming that the reason why it's only in the X100 is because it's a non-changeable lens, and there's all kinds of muck and whatever can get inside if when you change the lens. So that's my guess. The XH2, yes, there was rumors started to fly around last week on the rumor sites and everything, and obviously they're just rumors, so you can't put any kind of governance on them. But in my mind, it's been a long time since the XH1 came out. They're clearly waiting. I would say they're clearly waiting for next gen sensor. And I think everybody wants that XH2 to be. Well, actually, maybe not everybody, but certainly a lot of people wants the XH2 to be video focused.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, did you read all the rumor stuff?
I did. Yeah, I did read it.
What did you think?
Well, if all those rumor things are true, then yeah, it's going to be great. But who knows? And presumably it won't be this year either. It'll be 2022. No. So we've got a lot of time to get used to not having it yet.
It did miss. Well, not that I thought they were going to have it, but it did miss out the idea of a grip with an XLR, which. I know it was very much a fantasy thing, but I was hoping if it was going to be much more video focused, there might be some sort of balanced sound input or something going on. But I don't think that's going to happen, is it?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think that would be a great thing also if they did it. Not that the compressor inside the XT4 and in fact the GFX 100 is very, very good. So, whether it actually needs XLR input, I don't know. But yeah, a grip at least with that option.
Yeah, the problem is you're limited on the microphones you can use.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that if you can't have a balanced input, then some of these really fabulous shotgun mics, you convert them down to a 3.5 jack, and you're introducing at some stage. But I don't know. Who knows, Kev?
No.
I reckon you know more than you say, though. Sometimes, quick, get the Vice out like they had. We've been watching in the line of duty, Kev, and the bit where the bad guys put DS Arnott's fingers in the Vice to make him talk. It's compelling stuff.
Yeah,
we have watched the latest one, but we've also gone way back to episode 1, which we did watch in the first season, because some of those characters in there have a relationship to characters that you see in the current series.
Yes, they do. Don't no spoilers for people though.
Should I not do that? Because we saw one in particular, one little lad that comes back as somebody else. Won't say any more. Where we thought, oh, no way.
Yeah, we've watched this series so far, but I remember I only got halfway through the last series because they took some woman down the end of her by a river and cut her neck open, and I was like, I can't watch this anymore. I'm going back to Miss
Marple, yeah. But this series hasn't been that bad, has it, Kev?
No, well, this series isn't so far. Correct.
No,
I think they've toned it down a little bit, especially for me.
Don't upset Kev. Johan said there was a second question. We'll allow you that, Johan, because you are a patron. How worried are you on rainy days with your non-weather sealed gear? I have an X100F, and while I don't use it in pouring rain, I feel that it should be possible to use in most cases. It's a thing that you're meant to bring with you. So in my opinion, I think it should be able to handle a bit of weather. As always, thank you for the great show with entertainment value. I listen to it all and learn and laugh and learn a lot. Okay. Well, I don't have my X100F because I'm afraid that was one of the things that had to go to allow other things to be bought. But I am intending on the buying the X100V. But I will say I took my X100F out in all weathers, raining, snowing. It went up the top of a mountain with me in an absolute blizzard in Norway. Not a problem at all. So I wouldn't worry about it. But, I mean, obviously that's not... Don't come back to me saying, Neil, you said it would be okay. It's just the experience I've had is it's always been perfect. It's no problem at all.
Yeah, I have never ever, when I see weather sealing on a camera or a body, that never has an impact on my purchasing decision. Never. Ever. But I know for some people it does, because some people do live in extreme places. And rain, yes, but also dust and sand and things like that. That's the thing, especially on the interchangeables.
Yeah.
The X100s, of course, you can weather seal it. You need to buy a little adapter ring. But the X100 is a non-interchangeable lens, so you're not going to be getting dust and fluff and all that kind of stuff in the camera. So it's a little less. We talked about it last week. I dropped my X100S to the bottom of the swimming pool and it still works.
I know. Yeah.
Rusty, but it still works.
I left the F out for when I went to do the African job. I left the F out one day. Be careful how you say that. In the yard just outside the house where I was staying, and I'd completely forgotten about it. It was out on the table in the blaring sunlight, and they do say don't leave cameras out in the blaring sunlight, don't they? And that was absolutely fine as well. So it's been in both sort of ranges of temperatures, actually, sub and plus.
Yeah. I know for some people it's important, but it's certainly not for me. I have to say. Yeah. So
comes with a nice box as well, actually.
Shut up.
On that note, I'm going to get one more in here before your question. Mark Simmons, howdy boys. Just a quick comment about boxes. If boxes don't have value, why do people sell them on eBay? Do they, Kev? I didn't know they did that. Surely.
Well, I have no problems with the people selling them on eBay because they are entrepreneurs. The people buying an empty box, they are idiots.
Well, that's what he said for B. If boxes don't have value, why do people buy them off eBay? Frankly, I think Kev is leaving money on the table by throwing them out. He should autograph them with a silver ink marker and sell them on eBay. I think he'd be flabbergasted by how much he could get for them. Think of it, Kev, as a new revenue stream generated from the sale of limited edition boxes. Keep up the good work. Hope you get a chuckle out of this suggestion. Mark Simmons, somewhere in Wisconsin.
Which is home. No, they might need weather sealed lenses.
Well, it is home of fresh dairy air and cow chip throwing contests. What the devil is a cow chip throwing contest?
They got shin kicking around here. Have you ever seen shin kicking?
No, they don't kick shins, do they?
Yeah, they have shin kicking. They have. There's two on the. There's a program like the 20 most extreme sports you can get involved in, and two of them are within about 15 miles of my house. You got the cheese rollers.
Oh, cheese rolling! I've heard. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Cheese rolling, throwing yourself after this massive, great big cheese, and people break their heads. And then also in Gloucestershire is shin kicking.
Shin kicking.
Just you stick straw down your. Or the only thing you can do is you wear long socks. You put straw down your socks. And then you just kick the shit out of other people's shins.
But that can't be very good for you.
Of course, but neither is chucking yourself down a hill after a cheese.
Well, neither is cow chip throwing contest. I know. And that reminds me, is your horse okay?
Yeah, she's lovely.
You took a photo of your horse the other day, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Actually, that kind of goes into the question I'm about to read from Casey.
Oh, okay.
Off the Facebook group, Casey Eck says, "Hi Kev, hi Neil. I'm having a gear identity crisis."
What?
That's GIC as opposed to gas.
Wow, okay, that's a new one.
I've recently been tempted by the 16 1.4 Fuji lens. I've heard great things about it, and I've heard it's the best lens Fujifilm makes. The only problem is I'd have to sell off one of my other prime lenses to be able to afford it at the moment. I have the 23 and 35mm Fujicron lenses. I'm leaning towards getting rid of the 23. But is there something in that focus range worth saving? Or will the 16 and 35 have me covered? I'll be interested to know your thoughts on whether the 16 millimeters is all cracked up to be. Thank you. So my answer to that, Casey, is get the new 18 mil.
I thought you were going to say that. I wondered. He's not going to go for 16.
No. So the 18 mil f1.4 was announced yesterday, Thursday.
Yes.
Sorry, yesterday, Thursday. Well, okay, we didn't.
Last Thursday.
Thursday, the 15th of April. And I had it for a week, a couple of weeks prior to it being announced. And the reason why Neil was referring to the horse was because I traditionally try and take a picture of something I love. Yeah. The first picture I take with either a new camera usually or a lens. And this time I picked the horse.
I know, I couldn't believe it. I thought Gemma and the kidlings must have been thinking, hang on a minute, wait a minute, Dad. It always used to be us in those pictures.
They're fed up with it all now. But so the horse got in there. Bless her. She is a lovely little thing. Well, actually, she's a lovely, enormous thing. But so I'm going back to Casey. My answer probably would be the 18. I have the 16, and I'm going to sell that. Part exchange it and get the 18 1.4 because the 16, as good as it is, and it is very, very good, for me that's a landscape lens, more kind of context lens, but the 18 is the focal length that I always wish I had at weddings. And I do have it with the 18mm f2, the old version, but that's it's quite a slow lens. It's quite noisy. It's quite difficult in terms of the aperture ring, and it's so now they've replaced it, or not replaced it, but they brought out a 18mm f1.4, which is bigger and heavier, but it has rocket fast AF. It's the same as the 16mm 1.4 in that respect. It's premium build, all that stuff. It's weather sealed for those of you in Wisconsin. And so the 18mm 1.4 is where I was going to go, where I would go.
The 16, by the way, 16mm. I mean, we're not really talking a great difference between 16 and 18, are we?
No, we're not. However, there is a big difference in terms of barreling, edge to edge kind of distortions, things like that. And 16 for me, it's just, that 28mm focal range full frame equivalent is a classic. It's a very classic focal range that you don't see very often. I think Leica still support it quite a lot, but you don't see it much on many of the other brands. And I think that's, it's that kind of 28mm to 35mm full frame range is somewhere around there is your natural field of view, eye field of view. And I feel like that's what works for me. So, I usually take the 18 f2 with me to weddings, but rarely get it out because certainly in the dark, in nighttime stuff, it's just not quite up to it.
No.
But now, when I get it, when I manage to sell the other lens, I will get that, and I'll be very happy.
It's not the end of the line for the 16mm though, is it?
No, definitely not, because the 16mm people, I mean, the 16mm is ridiculously sharp lens, and it's very good. I can see people, or I've seen stuff from people doing astrophotography with that lens. It's absolutely phenomenal. And certainly landscape stuff and everything. There's a market for it. The closer you get, when you get quite close with that 16mm lens, people end up looking like horses in that, in the frame. Yeah. Whereas with the 18mm, it just doesn't have that kind of distortion. Yeah. So I'm really happy with the 18mm.
Matt Fletcher, hello Neil, hello Kevin. A podcast creation question rather than a camera question. Any tips on where to get stock audio clips from? Any websites you recommend? Storyblock seems to be a great place for video and audio. Well, I don't use Storyblocks, but I know of it. And I've certainly watched films of people who have Storyblocks and use it more for the video footage than they do for audio. But in terms of sound effects, I suppose really Artlist is one place you could go to, isn't it? Because they have a new sound effects library, which is growing and growing and growing. So it is.
Yeah,
I think that's
it's called ArtGrid, I think, isn't it?
No, ArtGrid is the video one.
Oh yeah, SFX.
Yeah,
SFX.
Artlist. If you just go SFX, sound effects.
Correct.
So you can either choose music or sound effects, and so go to Artlist. Now, Kev and I both subscribe to Artlist, and who's going to put the link up then, Kev? Because if you do go to Artlist and you go via our link, we get a little bit of love in return, which gets us closer to the holy grail of getting their services for nothing.
What are you up to?
I don't know. Not many. Only 3 or 4.
I'm up to 6. I need 4. I need 4 more for lifetime free access.
I see. Kev, your
We'll put your link up then, as long as you email it to me.
But yeah,
we'll put it in the show notes.
I thought, who's going to wrangle over this one? But I'm not just saying that because we'd like to get to the closer to the lifetime membership thing, but also the fact that I think it's a really, really good service. Neither of us used Artlist in its early days, did we? And we both ended up using Artlist, and I'm really, really happy with the service. And
Artlist is brilliant. I think, and the main thing about it is there's no. You can use it for anything: commercial, personal, YouTube. And also, they don't hold that sword of Damocles over your head that says when you stop subscribing, you've got to stop using the music. That's happened on other services I've used where you stop subscribing and then you start getting takedown emails from YouTube saying you don't have the rights to use that music anymore. Well, so they promise that'll never happen. Although saying that, the other ones promised that as well.
But also the other thing about Artlist is if you're making stuff for third party, so if you're making commercial, I know you mentioned commercial, but this is important, not just for your commercial stuff for your company, but also for other people. You can use their music without it. There is one other service which we won't mention because it is a great. I mean, it has fantastic music, but it costs the crown jewels to ever license something. If you're making a film for your photography business for somebody else, then it's just unbelievably expensive. But Artlist is not. You pay your what is it now? Is it $299, Kev?
Yeah, something like that for a year.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
And whilst that you think, oh, whoa, that's a big amount to shell out straight away. Well, if you use a lot of music in your slideshows, or if you're making films, or if you're making a podcast, since Matt mentions podcasts, then really it's pennies once you start downloading loads and loads of music and sound effects and stuff.
Yeah, so I think it's a necessity for people who are doing professional audio.
Yeah, and films. And this next one really is for you, Kev. And actually, I know what you're going to say straight away. So what template do you use on your Squarespace website for the FujiCast? The homepage looks great for scrolling through the many episodes. But Kev is going to say...
It's not on Squarespace, it's on WordPress.
I know.
Yeah, the FujiCast is the one I've still got left to do.
I know, it's the only one, isn't it, I think?
It's the only one. In fact, I just renewed my my hosting with SiteGround for that today, in fact, because I know that it's not something that's going to happen, imminently. No. So yeah, that's still on WordPress. The template on WordPress, God, I really don't know. I have no idea what it was. But to answer the question about Squarespace, if you go for a 7.1 orientated site, which you should these days.
Can you still get 7.0? Oh, you can. You can still buy a 7.0 can't you?
You can, but then you're hooked into a template. So 7.1 is template agnostic, so to speak.
Yeah.
You do start with a layout, but actually they can all be changed to any of the other formats.
So there we go, Matt in Chengdu in China. We had a question from Matt before, didn't we? I think there can't be many Matts in Chengdu in China, surely. Well, there might be. I don't know.
No, I would imagine yes. I think it's the same.
Matt Fletcher's,
same writer. Same caller. Thank you, caller.
Right. Shall we go for our guest this week? Meet Donna Svenovic, who has spent a lifetime making images across the world and in her beloved New York City for a range of publications and organisations, including being ABC Television's go-to photographer for top portraits and lifestyle imagery. Life magazine celebrated her work with a cover distinction, and she has a long-tail project that all started from dangling her feet atop one of New York's famous arterial bridges. More of that in a moment. Donna's portrait work is where we start, because if you look at her back catalogue, you quickly find famous eyes staring out, minus all the fuss and hubbub that surround the celebs these days, turning up with their Insta entourage.
I was shooting at a time before publicists and before a whole public relations machine. And I remember realizing very early in my career that wanting to be photographed is a flattery and is something that is extending some respect to a person. It's paying attention again. It's paying attention to someone. I don't know. I tried to be very careful with people. And it was kind of wide open. I don't think it's the same anymore. I think people are different now.
Life magazine always fascinates me. And you've been credited with a picture of the year in that illustrious publication. That's quite a thing to hang on your wall, I think. But of course, it isn't a magazine now. And that was the place great careers started, wasn't it? A lot of people think it was probably the greatest picture magazine ever. Why do you think people revered it so much? What was so important about Life?
I remember as a kid, everybody got Life delivered, and we also got National Geographic. And you could not throw away either of them. So in my parents' house in Brooklyn, there was just hundreds and hundreds of Lifes, and Look was another magazine, and National Geographic. And it was just this, maybe it was, I'm not sure about this, but it might have been the first magazine that used pictures so gigantically, full page, full bleed, double truck pictures, just so big. And it was also, photography was new. Color photography was new.
You've traveled the world, particularly when you work for ABC. There's a lot of suitcases, Donna, and a lot of towns. Was it the travel that kept you fascinated through all that time? What was it that kept you on the road and away from home?
Yeah, it's novelty. I think some people like novelty, like a lot of novelty. And I certainly did. And it's also an escape. I mean, I remember, packing all the equipment for the trips. That in itself, the night before, you're again, I'm focused, I'm thinking, I'm trying to anticipate, what do I need? What do I not need? Because it's always so heavy. And very often I went alone and met up with people. So, and it was just so exciting getting in that taxi at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. and getting to the airport and smelling the jet fuel, and you're off. You're free. Again, you're leaving everything behind and going forward. What
were the stories you particularly liked covering abroad? What was it about the different countries you went to? I mean, it's impossible to even start listing them. But what were the highlights? Well,
and it wasn't only abroad. I think in anticipation of speaking to you, I was just thinking, and also what's going on in New York. I was thinking that maybe my talent, or also my love, has to do with intimacy of photography and relational photography. It could be anywhere. It doesn't have to be abroad, but it was always when I would meet people and spend some time with them. And it could be some Maasai. I remember one morning we were in the middle of nowhere. It was me, a guy, and then a tracker, and the three of us were we were near Olduvai Gorge. I think I'm saying it right. I think that's where man began. We were camping there, and we were making a fire and waiting for the tea to cook. And then all of a sudden, these two Maasai came around, and were just, came to say hello. They had spears and beads and everything, and they wanted. We gave them some tea. And they hung around for a while, and I took photographs of them. But it's just those intimate connections all over the world. But what I realized was where it's the family of man. They wanted some tea. I have a photograph of them holding the Nikon, and somehow, I don't know why, we were all laughing, and they were looking at the Nikon laughing, just like they could be on Broadway over here.
There's a lot of personal work, it seems, on your site, Donna. The Feet series. This is what you're famous for, the Feet series. Proper long tail project. I mean, some people talk about long tail being, 5-10 years? You've been doing that project since 1978. Am I right in thinking that's the one that started on Brooklyn Bridge, or was that an image that was just part of this series?
That started actually on this bridge called the Verrazano Bridge.
Right.
And that connects Staten Island to Brooklyn. So I was photographing the New York City Marathon with my then boyfriend, Dan, who was working for Newsday or the AP. And he taught me so much, and it was a great relationship. He's a great photographer, and he was generous, and so he was going to go on top of the Verrazano Bridge, and he said, "Okay, you come too." And so we went on top of the Verrazano Bridge, and that's before a lot of people did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we were up there, and I guess I don't have fear of heights. And we were looking around, it's very high up. And then for some reason, I sat on the edge and I was wearing sneakers. It's a black and white photo. You can see it on my site.
Yeah.
And I just decided to hang my legs over the edge, and then I shot it. And that's the first time I did it.
But then it became the red slippers, didn't it?
Then I asked the Brooklyn Bridge. I asked for permission to go up there, and you have to actually walk up the cable with safety belts on. And I went with two bridge workers, and one was in front of me and one was behind me. Mm-hmm. And they were saying, "You know, if you trip, you're not gonna die, but you're gonna get really scared." Right. So I did not tell them or anybody that my idea was to do the same thing. I had some red high-heeled sequin stilettos in my pack, and I didn't tell them I'm going to go up there and sit on the edge. I didn't think that they would like that. But then when I got up there, they were nice guys, and I took the shoes out of my pack, and I said, "This is what I want to do." And they said, "Okay." And then they helped me. Because it's at a slant on the edge there. It's not flat. So they helped me. They held me, and so I wouldn't fall off. And I did that shot.
Donna, you're not shy of showing everything, your feelings, your emotions. It all comes across in the pictures that you show online. Your relationships with people in particular. You've just talked about your relationships with people and how important they are. That one with your father, the day he passed, I was like, whoa, that blew me away. I mean, that became part of the Feet series as well, I know. But describe for me what you felt that day, because that was a palpable moment, that last day of Dad's life.
Yeah. So I got a call from my mother in the morning. She said, "I can't get Dad up. I think he's dead." And my mother was starting to have dementia then, and so I just put a camera. I put a camera in the bag, and I took my dog Sparky, because you see Sparky in that picture.
Yeah. And
I walked into the room, and I still wasn't sure, because my father was in a sleep position that that he was always in, that we know it very well, that position. But then when I walked over, he was dead, and he was cold. I sat down in a chair, and my mother was in and out. We were crying a lot, and it was very peaceful there. And then Sparky, my dog, got up and sat on the bed right there. He was very used to being photographed, Sparky.
Was he?
And I just did what I usually do. I photographed it. Yeah, photographed him and Sparky and my feet.
I've talked with photographers of late, 2 or 3 actually, and recently in a row, who have photographed their parents' battles with Parkinson's and dementia. And you mentioned Mum sadly has dementia. I'm sorry about that. Are you intending to photograph her plight? Well,
every time I have my real camera and I'm going to take a picture, she goes like this. She was a knockout when she was young. I mean, I have I have scanned and retouched a lot of the old snapshots, and she used to wear red lipstick, and she had blonde hair, and she would wear tight suits and high heels, and she's ravaged by time in a way now. So she doesn't ever want me to take her picture, except she allowed me at her birthday recently. She put on some lipstick and she actually posed for the real camera. So what I do is I sneak pictures on the iPhone when she's not looking or she doesn't realize sometimes. Maybe that's a terrible thing to do. I'm a photographer. I'm doing it. So I do sneak pictures of her. Yeah.
What's next photographically? I know photographers always have plans. You've got long tail projects, I'm sure, and you've got things that you want to do, achieve, see, be, places to be. Where would you like to go? What would you like to do?
I don't know. I'm trying to be open because now, in a way, I love doing a portrait of a person more than ever. It's such a wonderful thing to do. It's getting to know someone. It's such a pleasurable thing to do.
Thanks to Donna Svenovic. If you like your photo stories, 2 stories this week for you on my podcast, Photography Daily. Today I talked to Todd Vickers, so after this show, head across there and you will hear him, who with his Fujifilm camera is a location scout and manager in the movie business. He's the photographer you want to see in your front yard, because if you do, he comes with a big check, well, later on anyway. And he has some superb stories about scouting locations, having worked for a decade now in the business.
So I had a friend that worked with Ridley Scott on a project, and when he first was talking to him on set one day, he said how much he admired a movie called The Duelists. I don't know if you're familiar with that film.
Yes.
It's one of his early works. It's a beautiful film about the Napoleonic War. And Ridley just looked at him and smiled and said, "Fucking telephone poles." And he said, "What?" He says, "I can tell you where every bloody telephone pole is in France."
It's a real peer into a photography genre that just isn't really ever talked about. And then Wednesday, big week, a photographer who's shot over 100 covers for Vogue worldwide and 40 covers of Rolling Stone magazine since the mid-70s. He's considered one of the most influential photographers of the 20th century and beyond, none other than Albert Watson OBE, who has a story or two, including the day he thought he'd earned an absolute king's ransom in 1971 for a handful of pictures from his first job.
I got into the elevator and kind of ripped open the envelope. I looked at it quickly, and it looked to me like it was $150 for 5 shots.
Turns out that $150 was a little bit more. Find out about that on Wednesday. Photography Daily is on all podcast apps, and if you're a patron, you get to hear the extra 2 diary and inspiration shows written every week for you. Plus, Mr. Watson will be sharing some additional stories. That's Photography Daily. Right, back to your questions. Kev.
Okay, so I have a question, and this one came in one day ago from Jamie Gonzalez. Howdy, gents. Could they, would they, should they make an app that allows you to edit, store, and upload camera settings? Maybe a group of wedding settings, a group of landscape, street, etc. Settings would include recipe, etc., customized to what I want to shoot. Right. Well, they kind of do. That's really what X-Raw Studio does, but it's not an app. It's not on your phone. It's you can set up your recipes in X-Raw Studio, and then if you've got the later cameras, you can just press a button and it kind of points them to the camera, and press another button and it sucks them in from the camera onto the software. So you can do it that way. I always remember one of the cool things about the Canon system was that you could save to the memory card. There was an option, let's just call it save settings, and it would save a little text file to your memory card. You could take that out and stick it in another camera and ingest the settings. And you can kind of do that with the Bluetooth and wireless app. But the app is, I think, as lots of people have kind of figured out over the years.
Bit twitchy.
A bit twitchy, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think the challenge for them is that, you know, lots of different X-Trans sensors. So you're going to have people who maybe have an X-T4 who want to, suddenly think, well, I want to send my settings to an X Pro 2. And it just won't work because the sensor is different, and so the software on board is different.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of complications in that respect. But yeah, X Raw Studio is partly there. It is there entirely, but it's computer based. So the question was, could they, would they, should they? And I think the answer to those is maybe, possibly, yes. Could, maybe, would, possibly, should, yes.
That's answered a bit like Andreas. Andreas would answer a question like that.
Yeah,
You're channeling your inner Andreas, then you were.
I'm learning from the king of marketing.
Yes, yeah. Here's one from Helen Acklam. Hi, not sure if you can help with this, but I have some Fujifilm kit and I'm struggling to understand what to get that's best for my needs to add to this. Is this the sort of thing you deal with? And I thought, well, it's right up our street, that. But it was a bit open, so I said, well, you'll have to tell me a little bit more about what your needs are. So Helen wrote back and said, yep, so I've got an XT3, love it, and the zoom kit lens. I wasn't getting enough detail tone range with that lens when photographing my artwork. Oh, you should, I will give you a link for Helen Acklam's art. It is incredible. So I bought a fixed 35 f2. I now need a wider angle so I can get shots of work as exhibited. So more of a kind of interiors lens that will also give good tonal range and detail. Not sure if that should be a zoom or whether I'm better with a fixed. What size would give an interior shot without too much distortion? There's another part of the question, but let's deal with that bit first.
Well, I think the answer is the new 18-1.4 in that respect. The 16 is wider. Oh, and obviously you've got the 10-24 as well. But the wider you go, basically, the more distortion you're going to get. And I did actually look at Helen's website, and you're right about the artwork. It was very good.
Yeah.
So for things like that, if it's for exhibition work and stuff like that is fine for the context type images and documenting what's going on. But if you're taking pictures of artwork for reference, for storage and cataloguing, then I think you probably want to get the a strongest prime lens that you can get, because you certainly don't want kind of barreling or any of those weird things that can happen on very wide lenses.
No. What price is the 18 going to be set at, Kev?
I think it's 879 sterling UK. So 879 in the UK, which means it will probably be about $400 US.
Yes.
We give a bit of blood and guts to the government on top.
Yeah. There was a second part to the question. Also wondered whether a medium format or full frame camera will give better results, i.e. would I notice a big difference between that and my XT3? All artwork, in brackets, is for online sites and online submissions. Never need anything blown up. So, yeah, I mean, would it be a GFX job instead, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, the GFX will give you better images and better resolution, better detail, certainly will. I mean, a lot of the people who are buying the GFX are things like museums, curators that are as I just said, cataloguing bodies of work, artwork. So yes, you will get it, but honestly, you have to know what you need. Really, it's an XT3 may be perfectly good enough for what you need, in which case, don't spend the extra money on a GFX. If in doubt, rent an XT3. See if that gives you what you think you need. If it does, stop there.
I'm just looking at some of Helen's artwork here. Boy, what a talent. Wow.
Yeah, it was lovely. I remember when that email came in, I looked. Yeah, it was very good.
The Arcades project in particular. I could sit here and look at that all afternoon, but we have to do a book. What's the book of the week, Kev?
Yeah, so the book of the week is Event by Matthew Beck.
Right.
Now, the reason why I have this, it arrived yesterday. So on Wednesday evening, or maybe Tuesday evening, I was on one of the Martin Parr Foundation webinars. He puts them on these days because of the lockdown. You pay a few pounds and you kind of have a webinar with people. And it was Joel Meyerowitz. And it was a fascinating chat, actually. Really interesting. However, one of the questions that was thrown at him at the end was, what are you looking at these days? What excites you? And he said, he's got this book called Event by Matthew Beck. And that was pretty much all he said about it. So I thought, well, okay, I'll have a look for that. And I duly ordered it. And It's actually really interesting. The story behind it is almost as interesting as the pictures. Essentially, the synopsis is that on some day, I can't remember the exact day, on the New York Times, there was a picture of the... you remember when they took a picture of the black hole? I can't remember how many years ago this was, and it was like a massive thing in science. They actually had a photograph of the black hole. Yeah. Or a black hole. And it was all over the newspapers. So he's taken that idea... Or he's taken that theme, if you like, and then he's gone into the New York Underground, and he's used that as the kind of basis for the pictures in this book. And what you have is there's a whole load of images that are kind of unrelated, but they're in the dark, they're in the underground. There's some wonderful street photos of kind of juxtapositions and everything. But the running theme is the black hole and the newspaper. So probably on, I don't know, every 4th or 5th page is somebody holding this newspaper, the New York Times, with the picture of the black hole, the photograph of the black hole. And it's really quite incredible. So it's only a small book. It doesn't seem to be particularly lavishly produced, but it's just really interesting. Like the central spread is a guy with that paper, and it's obviously he's inside the paper now, so there's multiple pictures of the black hole, and this guy's just writing a telephone number on it or something, and then you've got random pictures on the underground of like hands and people and all that kind of stuff. And then, another one, for example, is a picture of a guy who's scratching the back of his head, and next to him on the chair, on the tube, is a discarded paper with a picture of the black hole. Yeah. So I don't know whether this was taken over a series of days, but certainly it was taken around that news event. And it's phenomenal. It's really, really interesting. There's some really good kind of character portraits as well. There's this one lady, only in New York, I think. She must be about 150 years old, but, like red lipstick and bright blue eyeshadow. None of it's on properly. There's a picture of a drunk guy lying on the floor. There's ice creams discarded. There's another guy with this incredible kind of nose ring thing.
Does he pick up Radio 2 on that?
Yeah, you're looking at the same picture, but he's got the New York Times with with the black hole on it.
I got him. Yeah,
It's really, really interesting. I'm not saying that people are going to look at this and think it's the best photography in the world. I mean, I'm not here to kind of make that that decision.
It's a fascinating project, though, isn't it?
Very fascinating, and also I think remarkable in that he must have just thought, right, this is now.
I know there's a jacket description on there, Kev, and that might help us get to the bottom of why he did this. Read that jacket description there for us.
Peering into Light's graveyard. The first image of the black hole, that's in quotes, read the New York Times 11th of April cover story. The headline, like many others that day, was accompanied by an image of a glowing celestial ring framed by infinite blackness. The first image of a black hole. In his first book, New York photographer Matthew Beck, born 1986, why we need to know that, focuses on the unveiling of this previously unseeable image by following it into the depths of the New York City subway. The book suggests the notion that the cosmos is not something to simply be observed from our vantage point as humans, but more a system that we intrinsically are a part of. And the true nature of the black hole seems to be as elusive as the answer to humanity's most pressing question of why. Now I've just read that, and I think that's a whole load of old baloney. I just think it's a really good story. All of that stuff.
I was thinking for a minute, you sounded like one of those descriptor panels in an art gallery where you doesn't matter how many times you read it over, you think, who on earth wrote that? That doesn't make any sense.
I kind of wish I hadn't started reading that now. But I just think it's fascinating and well done to him for basically thinking, well, that's unique. One of the things that John Mayowitz was saying, the problem with photography these days is that it's almost like Graham Alexander Bell, who's once he'd invented the telephone and all that kind of stuff, he sacked all of his staff and said there's nothing left in the world to invent. It's all been done. Go home, we're done. Everything's been invented. And of course that was like 1912, but or 1840 or whatever. And John Mayowitz was saying, the problem with photography is that people are finding it difficult to not take pictures that have never been taken before, but to find angles, find stories, find themes. You know, we're all too keen and, you know, to just be cliche. And he's right, and I think he's right. And you know, this is a classic example. I'm not sure any of those particular pictures would be, you know, would hang on a wall next to some of Joel Meyewitz's best work. But it's a, you know, what a great thing. You know, imagine that. You know, boom, there's a black hole on the newspaper. I'm going to make a photo book out of that.
I think one of the issues, Kev, is that because we have so much access to anything we want now. If you think, oh, I wonder if anybody's done a project about X, the worst thing you can do is go look it up. And because we see so much, devour so much flows before our eyes. We're hit by so many images every single day. I think that can be one of the most damaging things to our creativity.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. You know, I think we're lucky also. Don't get me wrong. I think we're very lucky to live in the world that we live, and the accessibility to stuff, and the you know, the education and the ability for people to, you know, to get stuff online and everything. Yes, there's downsides, but also positives. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you can go down a black hole,
quite literally,
looking at stuff, and you're always going to find, what's that word they call it? Google. You type something into Google and there's no results. It's a Google whack. That's it. A Google whack.
Oh right.
Yeah, if you can type something that makes sense, you know, like a proper word or proper sentence,
but it doesn't actually serve you up an answer,
has zero results.
Right.
Now, years and years and years ago, there was loads you could get a Google whack quite easily.
Yeah.
Not
now. Not now.
No, very hard.
Well, what sort of question would you have to put in there?
I'm not telling you the things I put into Google.
No, best not.
How does Neil get his voice?
It doesn't have an answer for that one. There we are. Google whack straight away. What a great project, though. That's really good. That's really good. I've just seen a picture of me in there, Kev. Have you seen the picture of the guy that looks like he's eaten far too much during lockdown with a New York T-shirt on?
I saw that one earlier.
And he appears to have dropped pizza all down himself, but he doesn't care at all.
Yeah, I think my favourite picture in there is the glove. There's a janitor, like, I don't know, like a dustpan and brush, as we call it. It's probably something else in America. The brush is kind of leant forward a little bit, but it's still being held up. And the guy, the janitor, has stuck his gloves on the top and gone off for a coffee or something. So it looks like this spooky hand is kind of controlling the brush. It's just hovering in midair. MYCTA are the logos on there. So probably travel something or other. Yeah, you're right about that. There's that guy. Yeah, you're right. He does look like you. You're right.
Yeah, he's got my chins. That's for sure. Right, so the book is available. It's not going to cost you the earth, is it, this one? It's widely available.
Yeah, widely available. Amazon, event, Matthew Beck.
Yeah.
Good book.
Good. Right, back to your questions. We had one, I know, from Howling Bassett last week, but I did spy this, and I thought it was quite interesting. Question. You notice that some of the groom's party have their buttonholes on the wrong side. So if you're photographing a wedding, obviously. Do you mention it? I used to, he says, but that just delayed things, getting them all sorted, and it would normally be me doing the pinning. Plus, plunging pins into expensive suits probably isn't covered by my wedding insurance. Andy. Do you want to go for that first, Kev, or me?
I think you know what my answer is.
Well, I would mention it. Of course I'd mention it, because it's not my day.
What side is it meant to be on? I didn't think there was a side. How do I know? What side is it? Is there a side?
Yeah, it's on your. You wear it on your left side, don't? Is it? Do you know what? I look at it. I haven't been to a wedding for so long, Kev. I can't remember. But yes, there is a side. Of course, there's a side. It's on their left side.
Okay.
Or is it on their right side? I might have to.
Exactly.
Kev, do you know what? I really can't remember.
I didn't know that there was a
900
side.
weddings, and I can't. Well, there is a side, yes. And the answer is,
why is there a side? That seems sidist to me. Why can't you wear it on? Why can't you wear it on whichever side you want?
I think it's on the right side now. I'm trying to remember. Whatever side, but I would mention. Of course, I'd mention it, because I don't want somebody regretting all those photographs, saying, "Oh, I wish somebody would have just told me about that."
Yeah, but but the thing is, you don't know. You said yourself just then it's right. No, it's left right now. So you could get the fellas to move it from the left to the right, and then you would have made all their pictures back.
No, because there'll only be one donut that's done it wrong. It won't be the whole lot, will it?
I don't get involved in any of that stuff.
Why not? Why not, Kev?
No, because I if I touch something, or it's like sometimes they'll say, you know, can you like move the wedding dress or something? I'm like, nope. No, if I touch it, it will just turn to dog straight away.
Okay.
I'm not doing it. I don't touch any of it. You know, none of it. It's not. You know, I'm the photographer. I'm not the fashion designer.
No, but you don't have to be a fashion designer. It's just you're doing something to help. It's humanity, Kev. It's just saying, I'll help you out, mate. Go on. You got it on the wrong side. It is the left side, by the way. Just switch it across.
See, you were saying it was the right side.
No, I didn't say left first. I just had to look up a couple of pictures. It really is that long.
I don't think me in my crumpled shirt and my hair, you know, and my beard and whatever, have any right to say to people how to dress.
Have you ever put somebody's buttonhole on, Kev?
No,
never.
No, because what would happen then is I'd poke my finger and blood would spurt all over their face. I know it. That's exactly what would happen.
Oh, Kev, I do think you're catastrophizing slightly.
But that's it. That's what would happen. No, honestly, but no, on a serious point, I don't think it's you know, I read about some photographers taking like sewing kits and things just in case, you know, the bride says, oh my God, my button's popped off my dress, and a photographer comes to the rescue. Yeah,
super
why?
Photographer.
That's not your job. Your job is to take, while you're fannying about with knitting needles, there's pictures to be taken.
Oh, I'd never do that bit. I mean, I would point, I have done a buttonhole because, let's face it, a lot of men are a bit useless at that stage. And you,
I would be awful.
And you look at them and you think, oh, good God, give me the pin, man, come here. I mean, there's no coincidence that the word useless starts with the same letter as the word usher. But I try not to because I'd rather, yes, you're absolutely right, I'd rather be making the pictures. But I will point it out.
I honestly didn't really know that was a thing.
It is a thing.
I mean, I would. What would I say? I can't think of any real. I mean, I suppose if I saw one of the boys walk in to the ceremony room and their shirt was untucked behind them or something, I might say, you know, "Oi, mate, your shirt's undone."
Yes.
And at which point he would probably turn around and say, "Yeah, well, that's the fashion, innit, mate?"
Yeah.
You know. So that's what I don't get involved.
Kev, they're doing it like this in LA. Don't you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Sorry, but no, it's a good question. But
it's a good question.
As for insurance, I don't know. Really, would an insurance company, if you stuck a pin in somebody? Well, I suppose it would these days. Such is the litigious society that we live in.
Yeah. No, I'm not going I don't go near the people. Stay away. And actually, you know, there's the new 2 meter rule or whatever that's probably going to be with us for the next 5 years. I think that's going to save us all.
No, it won't, Kev. Yeah. No, I can't do portraits anymore because they're unlawful. You can't have them. All right, your question.
Right, I've got a question here from Will Simmons, and he says, "Dear Kevin Neil, I was wondering how you use the HSL sliders when editing your images. I understand how HSL works, but I've noticed in your videos, Kevin, that you have very specific figures that you plug into Lightroom. How do you determine which colors to change? And are there certain looks that you're going for?" We have had this question, or a very similar question, like a year or so ago.
I use it's hue, saturation, and luminance, isn't it?
Yeah.
So hue I do use because I find that can be really useful. Grass is such a difficult thing sometimes for sensors. It seems to get to accurately get, and sometimes if you have a certain brand of camera. Mention no names, you end up with electric green lawns. But this isn't so much a question about how to use it, of course. This is a how and why you use it the way you do, Kev, in your very specific way.
I use it when I'm building kind of recipes and looks and stuff. Not all the time, but yeah, I mean, it can be. Now, of course, you have in the later versions of Lightroom, you have the color wheels, which are basically a visual representation of it, much easier to use. But yeah, so I similar thing. You know, you don't want electric green grass and all that stuff. But for presets and styles that you're trying to design yourself, it can be really useful, especially actually the saturation, because a lot of the older film stocks were quite weak in the density of color. So pulling the saturation back on the reds and greens and blues generally, and on weird colors like magenta and cyan. Do you say cyan or cyan?
Cyan.
Cyan. Yeah. Cyan. I say cyan too. I think a lot of people say cyan.
Do they?
Yeah.
No, Cyan's the lad that goes down the local youth club. It's proper tearaway.
Yeah. So you can get some. It's a subtle thing though. You don't want to be dragging them all over the place. You really need to be looking at your end. You need to have a visual. I think with the HSLs, you need to understand what you're looking for rather than using it to edit a specific image. Understand what you're trying to look for first. So I want this picture to look a little bit like this in your mind, and then you've got something to aim for. If you just think, I wonder what this works like, and then you're going to start seeing deeper blues. And of course, if you pull the blues up in the skies suddenly look really blue, and that's great. But then you're going to have, nuclear eyes, and the eyes are all going to. People with blue eyes are going to look like they're off a horror film. So you've got to be a little bit careful with it.
I suppose you use HSL a lot when you're, as you said, with your recipes. That's where it really comes into its own, isn't it? When you're creating presets and things.
Yeah, exactly. When you're looking for a look that's uniformed, but each one, the more you change, the more you slide around with those, the more you need to keep an eye on the end images, because not every image is going to have the same control over the greens and the blues and everything else.
Do you use it also with making films when you're doing your filmmaking? No.
So in Premiere Pro, I'll use the color wheels again.
In Lumetri color.
Lumetri color, yeah. So, but again, I don't really play too much with it, I have to say. It's mostly, in filming, it's more about shadows and brightness and what have you.
Right. I think we may have gone around the houses a little there. Did we answer that? Do we have time for one more?
It's up to you. I really need a wee.
Do I edit?
I feel like I've got enough latitude to do one more question there.
Do we edit that, or do we make this question? Who says we should make this question really long for Kev? Oh, do you need to have a wee first, Kev? I could play some lift music for a second.
Music? No, yeah. I'm good.
Are you sure?
I'm good. I'm knocking my knees together under the table.
Okay. Stuff you probably don't need to know. Right, let's do this question. Let's do it really quickly though, so that Kev can do what he needs to do. This one is from Carlos Garcia. Hello. I'm just trying to slow it down, Kev.
I honestly thought my computer had broke.
Did you?
I thought, what's going on with my speakers?
Hello, Kevin and Neil. I think I've actually managed to do these slow effect.
Very good.
Personally, I've stumbled upon your show a few months ago, and I've been enjoying it ever since. So that's very kind of you, Carlos. Now I'm going back and listening to some of the older podcasts to see if you guys have ever talked about the Fuji XQ1. I've been thinking about getting that tiny camera so I can carry it with me everywhere I go. Currently, I have the X100V. You lucky thing. But even though that's a small camera, it's not really pocket size. And I know the sensor on the XQ1 is almost the size of a new iPhone. I still don't find the same shooting experience with that and an actual camera. What are your thoughts? No, I don't know that camera at all.
No, neither do I. I've never, at least I don't think I've ever used it. I've seen it about. I think
get bigger pockets, Carlos, and carry the X100V rather in your bigger pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine like the XF1 is similar to XQ1 is similar to the what was the XF1, and then things like X70 and stuff like that in size, I think. But yeah, I'm just quickly looking at the specs. It's about sensors, and there's no color filter array and all that kind of stuff. So ultimately, it's an entry level, very small compact camera. And as we said earlier, if it does what you want it to do, brilliant.
Right. There we go. Carlos, I hope that helps. I suspect it didn't too much, but I'm sure, Carlos Garcia in Texas, you can appreciate that Kevin right now is rather uncomfortable. So there's a reason to end the show, if ever there was one. Thank you very much for joining us this week. If you'd like to send in a question of your own, you can do so by sending it. Well, there's two ways to do it. Either go to click@fujicast.co.uk or you can send it via the Facebook group. Kev gets his questions from Facebook. I get mine from the email at the moment. But in a couple of weeks' time, it doesn't matter because we're all in the same place. I've been dusting off where you're going to be sitting, by the way, Kev.
Have you?
It's looking spick and span for you.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. Next week, I think, isn't it?
No, week after. Oh, it could be next week. No, it could be next week, actually, Kev. Or, no, it is next week. Yes, it's next week. I'm just trying to hold you here as long as I can. So
yeah. Should we talk about buttonholes again?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about boxes, Kev. Thank you to all those that are supporting the show by Patreon. If you can do it, fantastic. For those who feel it's appropriate, of course. Not just for us, but for your pocket as well. Music from Blue Wednesday. We're supporting music from the incredible artlist.io. I'm just having a think, actually, Kev.
Oh.
I wonder if we could discuss... I don't know, I'm trying to think of something we can discuss, Kev. Should we just let you go?
Hang up.
Yeah. See you next week, Kev. Bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.
I need to go.
Go. I'll still be here.
Okay, all right, give me a second.
Feel like we should time him.
Two hours later.
Right, I'm back.
Did you wash your hands?
Yes.